Let me get one of those T-minus 10-second counters. Okay, welcome everybody. 8th of May. Boy, the year is going by fast. Welcome if there's anybody out there in telephone land. If not, welcome to the staff and to the board of directors. Official call for order. Pledge of Allegiance. I think it's Chris's turn.
There we go.
Can you lead the Pledge of Allegiance all the way from over there?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Fine job, Chris. Stellar. Lauren, doing the roll call?
President Boyd,
Present.
Vice President Kaczynski,
Present.
Director Griffin,
Present.
Director Rotorua,
Present.
Director St. Amant.
Present. Sounds like with a presence habit.
You were thinking about it.
He didn't want to be a trend breaker tonight.
I know.
Would you mind the posting of the declaration, agenda declaration, please?
The agenda for today's regular board meeting was posted on Friday, May 5th, 2023.
Thank you. And conflict of interest, Director Griffin?
None.
Director Griffin? I'm sorry.
Did you s-
Kaczynski?
None.
None for Director St. Amand, but that being said, I must inform you that I am employed by the federal government. However, my opinions expressed tonight, if any, do not necessarily reflect those of my employer, or for that matter, the rest of the board of directors. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And Director Boyd doesn't have any conflicts either. Item 6, public questions and comments. Would you please pass the first caller in, Chris? Okay, we have no callers. So we're on item number 7 at, looks like 4:32, closed session. And we'll break for closed session. We'll go directly to closed session. We don't need a break. Okay, thank you for your patience, everybody. We had a little bit extra time in closed session. Decided not to do open session and go back to close, so we ran just a little bit over. But it was all good stuff. Wish we could share with you. Jim, would you care to talk about the closed session?
Yes, the board met with staff and legal counsel on the items under a closed session, and no action was taken. That requires disclosure under the Brown Act. That's all.
Okay. Judy said the exact same thing just before you came in, Jim.
Judy's more expensive than I am.
And I didn't say it. We started at 6:18. Don, if you, 6:18. Yeah. Okay, for those of you that weren't here, we already did the call of the order, the Pledge of Allegiance and all that. As we introduced the meeting, went to closed session. We're back now. And the item for us is now public questions and comments. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons desiring to address the board on any matter not on the agenda and over which the board has jurisdiction. However, no action can be taken or will be taken by the board of directors on any item not appearing on the agenda. Non-agenda speakers are asked to limit their presentations to 5 minutes. Public questions and comments on items listed on the agenda will be accepted at any time the item is brought forth for consideration by the board. When you're recognized by the chairperson, please state your name and address for the record. Do we have any public comments? Nope.
You ask me, shall we see?
Caller, speak when you can hear us. Caller?
Yes, this is Renee Westalesk. I live within Ridgecrest city limits. Under the agenda item, I have a question about, it's under all the reports after you get done with the other agenda items. Are you going to go into any detail about the special board meeting that was held on May 2nd? To answer questions on that meeting?
I don't think
That would be the LADWP release on the notice of exemption.
Right.
It's on the general manager's report for Don to provide an update.
Yeah, will we be able to ask questions about it?
Yeah, when we get to that point on the agenda, Renee, if you can listen in remotely and then call in, we'll take questions when that comes up as an agenda item.
Okay.
All
All right.
Mr. President, it's actually under the consent calendar there. It's item 1-2, I guess. That's what she's asking about.
That's for the minutes.
That's what she's referring to, because there's no discussion of it, is there?
Yeah, there's a discussion during the GM. Yeah.
There it is, I'm sorry.
So it'll be probably, I don't know if you listened to the whole meeting, Renee, but that'll probably be
Yeah.
at least a half hour from now,
Okay.
I'm
that's
guessing.
fine.
So,
Okay.
and Chris will put you directly through.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the public? Okay, then we'll go on to current business committee reports. Consent calendar.
I move to approve the consent calendar consisting of approval of the minutes from April 12th, regular board meeting, May 2nd, special board meeting, and approval of accounts payable and disbursements.
Do we have a second? Okay, I'll call for a vote. Public comment on the consent calendar? Nope, seeing none. Thank you, Jason. Okay, consent agenda is passed. Item B, Plant and Equipment Committee. Who will be briefing the Plant and Equipment?
I'll do that one.
Okay, thanks, Renee.
So this agenda item is the authorization to file notice of exemption. This is for the Northwest Transmission Pipeline Replacement Project. There's the draft in your board packet. It has been reviewed by legal counsel. There's a description of the project, and it is under a categorical exemption as a replacement or reconstruction project. So we plan to file this in preparation for being considered shovel-ready for the government grant that we're going to apply for that's due next month. So that and getting the bidding packet ready to go. So that's why we're filing it all now.
So there's no CEQA issues?
No, this is the CEQA process. It's a notice of
This is the
exemption.
process, okay.
I don't see it in here.
But it's abbreviated, or we suspect it will be because it's a repair of an existing line?
Correct. Replacement or reconstruction of an existing line, yeah. Mhm.
And what do you need from us?
Approval
Okay.
to file.
I'll make a motion that we file the authorization for the notice of exemption.
Second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we'll vote. Public comment, please. Sorry, Judy.
I'll just start.
Yeah, that's what this is for.
Yes, Judy Decker. I have a couple of questions. This time, is the application going to be for the complete line all the way to Victor Street?
Yes.
Yes, from Brady to Victor,
And how long?
except for the section that was already replaced, Judy.
Yes, obviously. How long will it be before the grant would be awarded?
In August.
Okay,
Yeah, fairly quickly. Oop. It would be, contract would be signed, everything before the end of the federal government's fiscal year, which is the end of September.
Thank you, Renee. Could you speak very briefly on the financial strategy for paying for that? Or is that known yet?
It would be 100% grant we're eligible for because we're in a community of less than 100,000 people. We're considered rural according to the federal government. So
Awesome. That is big.
that is a big deal, yes.
Okay, very good.
Do you have an estimate on that?
But it is only for construction.
Right.
Yeah, doesn't count engineering or environmental or anything like that. So
Okay.
But that's a,
4.5 million.
yes.
As a plan B to that, in case that doesn't come to fruition, we still are in talks with Alta One about possibly
Okay, I
financing
thought
it.
we were.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Wow.
Thank you very much.
That's good news.
Questions, comments from the public on that? Okay. Call for a vote. Ayes have it. Okay, item C, Association of California Water Agencies Aqua Call for Candidates for Region Boards. Is that yours, Don?
I can do that, yeah. This is the time of the year, of course, it seems like we have one of these on every agenda. So somebody's looking to fill a position. As you know, Aqua has several regions within the state. We are in Region 7. So what this request is for is nominations to join that Region 7 committee. And I know you're probably going to ask if somebody has been represented on that committee from the district before. I don't think so.
Maybe Cornell
Harold Manning?
or Manning?
Yeah, nobody since I've been here, but I don't know, those that have been here longer may have recollection. Renee's saying no. Jason, no.
Okay.
So anyway, if somebody's interested in stepping up to serve on that committee, and of course, those committees meet at the Aqua Conference as well. I know they have meetings during the year, but then there's the big meeting at the Aqua Conference is twice a year. I've sat in on a couple of the Region 7 meetings, and they're interesting, but it's mostly agriculture. That's the Tulare, Bakersfield area, Kern County, so mostly agricultural people, to my experience in sitting in those meetings. I haven't got a whole lot out of them being on the east side of the Sierra.
Yeah, I've gone to a couple of those at the two Aqua conferences I've gone to in Southern California, and you're right. I mean, the dominant voice there is agriculture,
Ag, right.
which makes sense.
I have no interest in serving on that committee.
Okay, I'll take you off the list.
Thank you. If nominated, I will not run. If elected, I will not
You
serve.
can take me off the list. I'm too
You're off
busy.
the list.
I'm retired now, so I'm too busy.
He is.
Chris, are you interested? No, thank you. Okay. We'll move on to item number D, Groundwater Authority, Director Griffin.
Okay, we do have a meeting coming up this Wednesday. It looks like a rather short agenda, so there's not a whole lot on it. The last meeting, bring up the audit, we'll start with that. We had some discussion about the audit. Stan, if I go any closer, it's gonna echo. Can you hear me? Oh, okay. The board approved going out for bid for a new audit, but we still have not got last year's audit. The, is it Brown and Caldwell or Brown and whatever they were? Brown Armstrong. They have not performed. They have not got it done yet. So there was some frustration. Director Peters came out and said that, he was hoping that maybe even we pursued a lawsuit against them because they wanted to get the audit completed, but it had not been completed yet. So they did do requests for proposals for a new company to do the last year audit. Let's see, other things that happened. They did a grant easement with the U.S. Army for telemetry. So that was approved. And then there was a reimbursement agreement with BLM for the pipeline staking, for permits and stuff like that. So they did just a simple agreement with them for reimbursement. And then they approved Resolution 523, which was a notice of exemption for geological boring. So they were on the pipeline, the underpasses and stuff to go into the highway. And then I think that was pretty much all that happened. I did again request to have a standing ad hoc committee as far as shallow well mitigation. I brought that up during board comments. There was no really a response at all. At the end of the meeting, the general manager brought up that I had requested for the last two meetings to have the board comments moved to the end of the meeting instead of the beginning so we could discuss. Was my feeling that we could discuss anything that might have happened or came up during the board meeting that we wanted to add to the next agenda. So she asked the board their position on that, if they wanted to keep it the way it was. And the only two, I believe, that responded were Director Peters and Director Heyman, and they both indicated that they wanted to keep it the way it was. That way there was no discussion or any argument over what already happened previously, and that's the reason it was set that way. And so that stayed. She also asked if we wanted to have the committee for the shallow well mitigation, and they never made a decision, so I will be asking again this week for a shallow well mitigation committee so we can look at proposals. And I know the PAC just had their meeting and they discussed the shallow wells, so hopefully we can get something done on that and move forward with that. I believe that's it. If you have any questions,
On the shallow well, and Judy, I attended it, and Judy did a good job bringing up. So I believe you're going to see some kind of action there in terms of committees or further discussions about better definitions and where you're headed with that. Because I can't say what the PAC's going to recommend, but I came away feeling that a lot more information was going to be needed to do it correctly. So I'm sure Judy might have something to say about that.
Yes,
Public comment?
yes. The problem that exists is when this originally came up before the GSP as to be part of the GSP, and there were a group of people that met and worked diligently on it. It was not called shallow well mitigation, it was called domestic shallow well mitigation. And somewhere along the line, after the committees made their presentation, it was changed. And it should be shallow domestic well for mitigation, and that should be it. And there's a whole list of things that need to be defined. Shallow domestic well, for starters. And I did write a set of notes. I gave Ron a copy, and tonight I gave Chuck a copy, and I gave the PAC members copies. But it was a very vague discussion, and a subcommittee needs to be formed to iron out the details. And people familiar with well drilling need to offer their input. I'm talking about domestic wells now, not agricultural wells or industrial wells or anything like that. The other item that was discussed was rather disconcerting from my standpoint. I don't know what Don Sadiba thought of it. It was basically appeared to be taking the authority, no, that's too strong. It was a discussion of the GA getting involved in consolidation of mutuals and co-ops. And of course, you people have been working with a couple of those organizations for several years. And in my paper, I brought up that this was something that the water district was doing and was in charge of, and it should stay that way. I definitely think it should stay that way. Now, if the GA comes across some sort of grant that could benefit you guys and the mutuals, they should pass it on, not try to do it themselves. My opinion is they have more than enough to do that they haven't done yet, and they need to concentrate on that.
If I could just add that to what Judy said, they're aware of the consolidation efforts that we have with Dune 3 and Hometown Water. And I clarified during the meeting, I don't know if you had an opportunity to watch it, but I want to make sure that the PAC members understood and anybody watching understood that motivation for those consolidations was not well levels dropping. It was basically people that are trying to manage that are getting tired of managing it and trying to be the ones that have to collect the money, deal with the regulatory agencies, and just wanting to alleviate themselves of that burden of having to run a water system. Nothing to do with well levels dropping.
Okay.
And that's an effort that is encouraged by the state of California.
Right. And the other thing, I don't think I put it in my memo, but the fact of the matter is the consolidation that was talked about was basically virtually all of the mutuals in the valley. And even if the water district, for instance, took on all of the mutuals south of Inyo Kern Road, we're getting really ambitious here. The water district could not use those small domestic wells, and you would have a big increase in a supply demand and would have to drill more wells. So the whole thing wasn't looked through very well at all, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
And I appreciate your comments, Judy, and I also agree with you that any consolidation would need to go through the water district.
I've got a couple comments on the last meeting.
Microphone.
Thank you. I guess I was disappointed in the discussion regarding the audit. Director Peters was pointing his.
Is it working, Stan?
Tap the mic and figure. Nope, not working. Director Peters, was rather vehement that it was the auditor's fault, and yet nobody on the board actually asked the general manager what the reason was for the delay. Originally, the delay was for getting the auditor to understand the replenishment fee. It was new in 2021, January of 2021. And my feeling is most auditors are really very respectable people. All they've got is their reputation. And my feeling is I would like to see our representative actually ask the general manager why we don't have an audit, as opposed to just assume that it's the auditor that's not performing. Because I've tried to understand the finances myself personally, and quite frankly, I think the problem might be nothing more than the GA's general manager hasn't been able to explain what the finances really are. So And by the way, I did notice that it's not on the agenda for this coming meeting, which I find disturbing. And of course, if he isn't performing or if they aren't performing, then obviously we need to take steps to do something, but we shouldn't assume a priori that it's the auditor's fault. The other thing I was disappointed in was the sort of PAC discussion. Ms. Decker stood up and asked about when the C&E plan was going to be adopted. And very pointedly, I thought very appropriately, and not one board member, as I recall, or at least that I could hear, responded. And I guess I would like to see our member of the board get proactive in trying to push to get that agenda item on the agenda. And of course, that would have to be worked through the staff. It's the staff that helps with the formulation of the agenda. But I believe that the C&E update was actually not adopted, but it was accepted or received back in October. And Ms. Decker asked, when are you going to do something? And it was just total absolute silence. That was one of the major items that was on the DWR review of the GSP. And so far, we're a year and a half from having the next GSP update out, and there has been no formal C&E plan that has gone along to help guide that. So if we could do something, I would like to find out who is keeping the C&E plan from being adopted and why. I think that's something that we owe the public. And those are my two comments.
Thank you, Stan.
Back to your comment, Stan, on the audit. It's my understanding, so if I'm wrong, correct me, that the holdup is what I was understanding that was presented the meeting prior to was because they'd requested a change order because they did not understand the replenishment fee, so the auditor requested a change order because they weren't aware they had to do those extra steps, and there was more work involved than what they had done. So they'd issued that change order and still hadn't got an answer. So I will find out, but that's why I did not ask the question, because I assumed that it was because they'd requested a change order, and that was the holdup. They were waiting to get the change order, and then once that got approved, they would perform and get the audit done. And so that was how I felt, that they had not done their job. So if I'm wrong, let me know.
No, I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, and it's impossible to know. It may be that that the auditor gave them a draft copy that they didn't like, and now they're debating what's really to go into the audit. There's a number of financial issues associated with the replenishment fee, especially since one of their major contributors is paying under protest. So when you look at the audit and how everything shakes out, where do you put, everything in terms of the liabilities, that kind of thing. So it's not a straightforward audit, I guess. And my feeling is that we need to find out. I mean, I'm not saying it's not the auditor's fault. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that somebody should have asked the general manager, why is it late? And not just, they didn't perform.
Okay.
Question from the
But
public.
I have no specific, secret information.
Question from the public.
Well, Stan, thank you for all those kind comments you made. Yes, when Mr. Peters was chairman and the revised C&E plan was presented, it was received and filed. And all a person has to do is observe. They don't have to say a thing. All they have to do is observe the atmosphere and the difference between coming to a water district meeting where you're free to get up and comment on things. There's no timer with flashing lights and buzzers, and go to a GA meeting. It's 180 degrees difference. And the other thing you do is you have regular comments. Don has a column in the paper regularly. There's never been a regular sort of comment column in the paper from the Groundwater Authority, just news articles. Once in a while, there has been something from Steve Johnson, Stetson Engineers, but they need to change things. That's very definite.
Well, thank you for your kind words.
I want to say that don't expect this audit to be a forensic audit. I mean, you understand, no, it's not going to be. It's going to be a general audit. Because a forensic audit would deal into things like, is the replenishment money being spent to buy water? Where's the money being spent and how it is? I don't believe that the GA board, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chuck, as far as you know, that they're requesting a forensic audit to identify whether they're making the payments correctly, using the money correctly. So this is just a general audit, I think. But again, I don't know, but it's a question that the manager can answer. And that's a question to ask them. What's holding up? Is it a general or forensic audit?
I'm fairly certain it's a general. There's never been a discussion about a forensic audit, so
Okay, I
don't
wanted to be
believe that's
sure.
what this is.
I just wonder why it's taking so long and whether, okay, thank you.
Okay, without further ado, we'll move on to the item E, comprehensive adjudication. Mr. Worth?
Sure. This won't take very long. I've been reporting for the last couple months that we are still waiting for the Judicial Council to appoint a judge. There's statutes in there that require, it's mandatory language. So Judge Claster, who has agreed to handle the case, all of the parties have stipulated to him, but unless and until he is appointed by the Judicial Council, he won't make any substantive rulings. So there's no substantive motions or questions that can be brought before him, and that would go for any party. That said, within the past 3 weeks, the Judicial Council has acknowledged that they've received the letter and all of the supporting documents and that it's under review. They are aware of the upcoming case management conference on June 2nd. That's something I should report, CMC, on June 2nd. But if Judge Claster isn't appointed, I mean, it's going to be a quick status report and not much else can be done. So, you know, that's where all the work is being focused, and hopefully get something done there. I think I reported last time, but the district has completed all of the requirements to serve all the parties. That doesn't mean all the parties have made an appearance or anything, but we have done, from the mailers and all the additional steps that we took through digital ads and publishing, and so we've checked all the boxes, and the case is now, at least in our opinion, what they call at issue, and ready for a judge to make a ruling. And really, that's about all I have on this. Answer any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any public comment or questions?
I have one comment. There was a news article in the Daily Independent last week where a lawyer made a comment to the fact that the adjudication is really not necessary, and so we're really just wasting a lot of money. And that bothers me because people read that, and because he's a lawyer, some people will actually believe what he's saying, and my feeling is that I don't know what we can do, but it would be nice if we could somehow get the word out. We have, I think, stated it properly previously, why we're doing the adjudication, but as long as there are other lawyers out there claiming and reclaiming constantly that it's really not needed because we've got the GA and the GSP, we need to do something to counter that type of misinformation. I don't know what, but I think we need to give it some thought and figure out what we're going to do. Because I, for one, don't like the public being misled.
Director Otero, that was from an interview in a article in one of the local newspapers, is that right?
It was a handout, an insert in the Daily Independent, I believe.
Okay, so I agree with you. The Water District needs to respond to that with the facts.
Yeah, I read it as well, and I was a little disappointed. I only had to say one thing about the adjudication. It was the way to bring the Navy into the discussion. And that wasn't said, I don't believe. I read it, I didn't see it in there. It basically just talked about all the money being spent on lawyers.
Well, and the certainty, I mean, the Navy involvement and certainty. And it's pretty straightforward. The lawyer who put that in the Daily Independent or in the enclosure should have known better, but he didn't, and so therefore, my feeling is we need to do something.
That was an interview, I think, by Jessica. It was an interview by Jessica.
Yeah, we need to answer that.
Was he one of the lawyers in the GA, or who was this lawyer?
That would be Mr. Lemieux.
Yes.
Was it his
It was
representation?
Keith Lemieux, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, he was just interviewed, but he got like the last two-thirds of the whole.
Oh, he got a lot of free press.
A lot of free press, yeah. Well, you know how lawyers are, they get a chance to talk and they go on and on and
So
on.
what do we need to do?
Can we take that for consideration and action, Jim, as a follow-up? Even though it's not specifically on the agenda, can you put some attention on this afterwards?
I think you can just give a staff direction to address that, and I think we have a couple different ways we can do that, and we'll certainly look into it.
Thank you. Perfect. Any other comments from the public on the adjudication? Nobody on the phone, Chris? Okay. We'll jump into item F, the general manager and staff update. Mr. Zediva?
Okay, we always start with our safety record, and as of today, we have 125 days since the last recordable injury. As far as production, meter production at the wells for the month of April, 129,300,000 gallons, that's 396.8 acre feet. And again, as I say every month, that's the number we report to the State Water Resources Control Board, is the metered water through the distribution system, or consumption, as well as water loss to leaks, blow-offs, et cetera. That number, 99,259,000 gallons, 304.6 acre feet. Since June, there has been a requirement from the state board to submit a preliminary report, which includes just a consumption, population, residential gallons per capita per day by the third business day of the month. I kind of missed that due to my absence last week, but we did submit that yesterday on Sunday. The full report is required by the 28th of the month, and that was filed this morning. The conservation results for April show consumption was down 38.5% compared to April of 2013, the baseline year that the Water Board uses for comparison. So through April, the cumulative result since the board adopted a 20% conservation rate is 23.8%. I will note, Governor Newsom did request a voluntary 15% reduction to address what were the drought conditions at the time. He has removed that as of last month for some areas. I don't have specific knowledge, but I would think since we're one of the 21 overdrafted basins that wouldn't apply to us. So the report that I submitted, assumed that we were still under that 15% voluntary reduction. And that compares to the same period of time, 2020 and 2021, because it came out in June. So you compare July, August of 2020, and then January, February, March of 2021. So if we compare April 2023 to April 2021, we had a 19.7% reduction. So we met and exceeded that 15%. If we look back to April 2020, it was only 6.5%. Looking at conservation results over the recent 4 years or so, consumption in 2022 was almost the same as, well, it was 18.5% lower compared to 2013. 2021, 18.8%, 2020, almost comparable to this 2023 result, 32%, and 2019 was 30.4%. And likely the variability between 18 and 30% is obviously this is a transitionary month for weather. Sometimes you get cool weather, sometimes it heats up, so that probably accounts for the variation that you see. We do report residential gallons per capita per day. That was 82.2. And again, this includes both indoor and outdoor consumption. As far as new connections, we had 6 new connections during the month. And so for the fiscal year, we've had 25 new connections. And that fiscal year, of course, begins July 1st. It does include one prepaid account. And those 25 connections have contributed $197,696 in capital facility fees. So any questions before I go on to public outreach? No? As I said, I was out of the office last week, and unfortunately I was unable to attend the May 2nd Community Collaborative meeting. And I say it's unfortunate because going back to when Dan Clark was the mayor, those meetings have always been held at City Hall. There's been some direction to try and rotate them a little bit. So this meeting on May 2nd was held on the Navy base. And I would have liked to have been able to attend that, but I think they intend on rotating it around a little bit more than they have in the past. As far as more outreach, district staff, we've been working with volunteers at the Matarango Museum on an exhibit that's entitled Artistic Waterwise Landscape. The exhibit will display over 40 dryscape techniques and include photos of local front yards demonstrating a wide variety of dryscape techniques. The exhibit will also give viewers tips and techniques on how to get started transforming to dryscape, as well as promoting the Water District's Water Smart program. It's scheduled to open May 15th and run through October 22nd. And one of the former PAC members, Nick Panzer, has been communicating primarily with Lauren on setting this up. We do continue to work with Providence Strategic Consulting to promote Water Smart on social media. As of this morning, there were 1,580 active Water Smart accounts, accounting for 12%. If you read my Monday update, the last number that I reported was 1,509, so it's an increase of 71. But the percentage went down. So this just has to do with in Springbrook the number of active accounts. But it's a significant increase. We did have 746 customer alerts that were issued during the month of April through WaterSmart. And over the past 12 months, not the year, but over the past 12 months, 13,062 alerts to customers.
Can I ask a question real quickly about that? I've been getting a question about how quickly you're notified. If you go into the system, Ty, and you said, let's say,
No more than 24 hours.
is it, how soon before you're notified? If you go over your amount?
Typically 24 hours.
24 hours, okay. Thank you.
I think the next item is the status of LEDWP releases. LEDWP did declare an emergency in March 17th. Had a concern about flooding in eastern Sierra communities and also Owens Lake and damage to, I think, somewhere around $2.5 billion invested in dust mitigation efforts on Owens Lake. So as far as Indian Wells Valley, there were 5 locations that they could release water from. Freeman Sluice Gate, which is the big one, was open on March 29th. Boulder Draw and Bird Spring Sand Traps were open on April 1st. And Indian Wells Sand Trap was open April 4th. And Sage Canyon was open April 1st, but did not register flow until April 8th. The Boulder Draw Point has been shut down as of April 17th due to concerns about damage to the area and is remaining closed. I didn't get an update for today yet, but as of Saturday, the last update we received, we're estimating, based on the flows they're reporting, 3,167.68 acre feet have been released from those 5 discharge points. We are getting regular updates, and our staff has been really doing a good job of going out there and dropping pins on mapping the flow, as you can see on the slide above. And we do share that with LEDWP, and they include it on the report that they issue every day. As far as we know, those releases are still likely to continue until as late as August. And again, there's a reference in 2017, when they released water into the basin, the reported numbers I received was just under 2,000 acre feet total. So this is a obviously much more significant event. During the May 2nd special board meeting, a notice of exemption was approved for a project involving placement of temporary sandbag dikes to be hand-placed within the banks of Dixie Wash to slow the flows in an effort to help protect the facilities at the China Lake Naval Air Weapons Station. Also to prevent potential damage from subsidence to naval facilities, and as a secondary benefit to encourage percolation in the groundwater basin. Early on, we did reach out to Kern County for assistance in acquiring materials and possibly some labor to help fill in place the sandbags. Since then, and understandably so, we've been informed that resources are spread pretty thin due to the massive flooding that's occurring over the Central Valley. So I don't anticipate we'll have much in the way of resources available from Kern County. But we would like direction from the board to identify and reach out to some other potential sources for assistance. I will note that today, in the mail, I received an account activation card in my name for the New Wells Groundwater Valley Authority for credit up to $500,000. So perhaps we could use that. Joking is a start. Yeah.
Don, as of 1:30 this afternoon, the water is at where it starts to bend towards 395 right there.
So it's crossed through the property.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I did have one other thought that we could have perhaps. I did receive an email from Kern County Emergency Services, I think it was, that said they were offering 20 free sandbags to all residents. So if we could get our customers to all go get 20 sandbags and bring them to the water district, and then Jason had a thought that we could do a demonstration out in the field and teach them how to fill them and place them. So.
I have 500 on a pallet that are loaded you can have.
Really?
In my yard.
Might be a conflict.
Are you looking for the board to give I'm sorry, Chuck. You did give away that stuff, yeah. Are you looking for the board's approval to look for funds that might be available for assistance? Is that what you're asking? I don't know that we need to vote on that. I do know that part of the project is intended to help protect U.S. Navy facilities at China Lake Naval Air Weapons Station. John. So talk to John.
I have
a motion for that, or?
Reached out to Commander Turner, give an indication that he has concerns about that water reaching the base and doing some damage. And did request a statement, not necessarily a formal letter, but even an email, basically stating the concerns that they have on the base and that they do support the water district taking some action to try and slow that flow down. So I haven't received anything yet. I have been in communication with them. He indicated that the week before last, he would talk to Captain Vaughn again and get something ASAP.
I know you weren't here, Don, but there was quite a lively discussion about the efficacy of the approach that was submitted with the sandbags. It wasn't a unanimous opinion that it was a good way to go forward, so there's still some more discussion there.
And Mr. Krieger is on the line, I believe, to help answer some questions that help put the project together. That's probably him.
Yeah, and before we get onto that, would we not qualify under the governor declaring it an emergency, because this is an emergency area, so we could also probably get funding through the state, because it is to protect.
As I Chuck's calling me. Go ahead, Chuck.
Can you hear me, Don? I'm sorry, I wasn't able to connect with the line.
Yeah, we can hear you. You're on the microphone. We can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sorry, so while I was dialing, I'm not sure what the question that might have come up, efficacy of sandbags, I think I heard.
Yes.
Well, okay, so I think what has happened is that we went through the list of agencies from which we need to get permission to do anything with regard to constructing or damming or slowing down the water in the Little Dixie Wash. After pursuits with the BLM and with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, we identified that the fastest possible way of trying to slow the water down to enhance percolation was to put material, a short dam in the kind of narrow sections of the Dixie Wash, with sandbags or some other kind of similar, easily placed damming facilities, and not necessarily having to go out in the desert adjacent to the wash to dig up and place sand dikes, but something a little less disturbing than that. So that's how the sandbag idea arose, because it was identified as the fastest route to be able to put something in the creek bed that would slow down the stream, enable ponding, enhance percolation, and try to capture some of the water that was being discharged. So again, that was why that project was identified, described, was because we thought it was the fastest thing that we could do to make it happen.
And working within the wash would not require a take permit from Fish and Wildlife, so that was an advantage as well.
Yes, thank you, Don. That's an important point. So working in the wash would preclude the need for take permit for environmental disturbance outside the bed and the banks of the Dixie Wash. And it was seen as, we approached it as, hey, what's the longest lead item that we have with regard to making this happen? And it, might not be a surprise to anybody, but it was, in fact, securing the permits from the environmental regulatory agencies that are out there. So that was identified after being vetted, different projects being vetted with, grading some ponds in there, versus, doing some work, some extensive work in the stream bed. So, again, it was identified as, hey, here's the thing we could do the easiest with the least, fewest challenges from the permitting agencies. It's not much. We're just putting sandbags across the bed and the banks, of the wash, and hoping to create kind of a series of shallow pools as it moved through the properties.
I do want to assure the board that we have had conversations about the fact that this is not a one-time event. It's likely to happen again, and we do need to look long-term, something to handle this better, so that we don't have to act on such short notice. And we've even had that conversation with the local BLM office, and they've said the same thing, that, let's work together on a solution to this, that we can be prepared, better prepared next time. So we are going to have those conversations.
Yeah, I think a lot of that, exactly. I think a lot of that went into the approach that we had, and we've created some, some more detailed grading plans for creating actual ponds that we could fill, and not just use a dam in the creek bed, but grading some ponds that can take the flow in the future. And to make that happen, and we're using this occurrence as, hey, when this happens next time, maybe we can be more prepared and secure more of that water and let it percolate more effectively.
Chuck, this is Chuck. I have a few questions. I feel whatever we can do right now to benefit the valley, obviously we need to do. But I have a couple concerns with sandbags. My fear is that if we put sandbags, the water's going to alter around because we're not putting in an overflow pipe or something to ensure that the water stays on the same path. So we don't want to alter that stream because that could be more of an issue. But on another note, I know as a contractor, we can get a grading permit to clear an acre and a half of land on private property. So if we could do that, could we work in conjunction with people in town that had private property, obtain a permit? What's your thought on that? Because there would not be environmental issues. And would the district not have the same as the general public as far as if we just turned in a grading plan and then we had approval from the county, as long as it didn't affect a larger footprint, then they could issue that permit? Because I know we don't have to do that on house pads or anything else, and we actually create ponds and sumps on every pad we build now.
Wow. Okay, Chuck. Firstly, the district is obligated to comply with, CEQA as a public agency before making decisions about doing any kind of project that includes land disturbance or any other kind of construction. And that's not something that the private landowners are subject to necessarily. So that might be a potential to work with them to be able to do that. And I don't see any reason that we wouldn't want to do that. My next thought is to the comment you went with the overflow pipe. We can, with regard to sandbags or whatever it might be, you can include, a drop down, essentially kind of a weir, reduce the height of the dam by not putting the bag so high at a certain point so there's an overflow, so the water stays in the bed and the banks of the existing wash. You made a compound comment there, Chuck. I'm not sure if I attended to all the things that were contained therein. With regard to overflow, yes. With regard to the permitting, there may be some advantages, but we certainly
Can't take advantage of them. I understand.
we can't. Right.
Okay. All right, and then my only other comment would be, I think we need to do all we can do right now to be working with LEDWP for banking and future projects, or anything we can do to get in design for some percolation ponds with a shallow well to where we can gain 100 feet or so of percolation and percolate down into the ground. If this happens, this is a longer term, correct?
Agreed.
Do we have any indication?
Pardon me for interrupting. I'm not sure who was just about to speak, but in the many years that I've been working up there, the exchange of information and the communication between the district and LADWP has never been stronger.
Correct.
And that's something. And I think we should continue to build on that trust and exchange. It's mutually beneficial.
We have any indication, Chuck, when the letter that we sent off might be reviewed and an answer received? Permission to do this. We filed a...
Oh, it's a 30-day on the notice of exemption.
Yeah.
Respond.
It hasn't been
I'm
filed
sorry,
yet.
the filing, I wasn't following. Pardon me, Director, I wasn't filing. Yeah, that precipitates a 30-day comment period where objections might be filed and have to be attended to. So,
But there's nothing that requires you to wait the 30 days. It just shortens the statute of limitations. So once the NOE is on file, we would be clear to start the actions, although we would be subject to challenge, although I'm really not sure somebody's going to do that in this instance.
The plan is to get that sent out next week along with the other NOE that was approved today. But I wanted to know though, did we want to wait to get the letter or email from the Navy to go with that, or do we want to go ahead and just send it as it is? Because there was something mentioned about filing that letter with the paperwork that's going in for the NOE, so we just go ahead and file it.
I'd probably go ahead and file it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Comments from the public? Okay, please pass the caller through. Probably Renee. Caller? Caller? Please state your name.
Hello? Yes, this is Renee Westerlusk.
Hello, Renee.
Okay, my questions are, what is the cost and what is the timeline for everything? Like the timeline of how long will the releases happen from LADWP? How long is it going to go on? Is it going to go on for months or is it just a short period of time? Also, what is the timeline to get the sandbags set up? It sounds like by the time you get the sandbags set up in place, the water releases will probably be completed. And I want to know, like, what happens to the sandbags after the LADWP water releases are completed? Are they taken down or permanently just left there? Those are my questions.
We'll take those down.
The timeline, oh, go ahead, Chuck.
Pardon me, Don. I think the timeline is something that we look forward to having it executed in a month or two. I think the projection is LADWP is going to continue to discharge for until August, if I'm not mistaken. That might have been updated recently. And so the window to take advantage of that is a fairly short one, but it's something that can be achieved, hopefully very economically, with placement of some of these bags. Yeah, we want to keep in mind that we're not talking about crossing, 40 or 50 feet of the Dixie Wash with sandbags. We're going to try to do it in the narrow sections where it's 6, 8, 10 feet wide. That'll back up the water into those wider sections, and I think that once the project's done, I think that the bags should be removed. I think that the Department of Fish and Wildlife would expect them to be removed. But in the meantime, then we can start talking about more long-term projects with the kind of diversions and percolation ponds that we were discussing earlier.
Does that answer your questions, Renee?
Yeah, pretty much. But I'm just kind of worried by the time, because you don't have anything out there now. You have no sandbags, and you got gushing water all over. Is there going to be damage to the Navy bases, facilities, whatever they're concerned about? By the time you get the sandbags there, it sounds like it's going to be too late.
Well, our staff is out there every day. I wouldn't say the water is gushing. In fact, on some days it's receding. If you can see I think it's still up there. The water advances and it recedes, so it's not like it's just a torrent flood coming out toward the base. It's a relatively slow flow. And again, it does recede at times.
But you're saying they're doing this continuously and it's going to go on for maybe through August?
Correct.
Possibly, yes.
Can you get the sandbags assembled in time before any damage can be done?
That will depend on when and where we can get the sandbags from and arrange for the labor to fill them and put them in place. As I said, we early on, we had indications that we could get assistance from Kern County, but again, as I said, understandably, they're facing massive flooding in the Central Valley, and that obviously is a higher priority than controlling this flow coming through Dixie Wash. But we're going to work on trying to find some alternate sources and try and get those in place as quickly as we can.
Would alternate sources include going out of state to get sandbags?
possibly.
Yeah, I don't think we're at that stage of planning yet.
Yeah, it's early, Renee. In regards, if you're concerned about damage on base, it's probably likely that LAWP will turn off the spigot if it starts to go under the base boundary. We're trying to keep that from happening so that the water that's coming into the valley can be retained and for beneficial use.
Okay. All right, I guess that answers my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Decker?
Yes. Water seeks the path of least resistance. So what's going to happen when it gets to the top of the sandbag, or even before it gets to the top of the sandbag dam? The wash is generally made up of clays. It's not very, it's not very rocky. And so the water is going to also go horizontally. What kind of damage will that cause?
I'm not really sure how to respond to that, Judy. The way I think that the team has been viewing this is that this is an opportunity to potentially capture significant amounts of high-quality water. I think almost 2,700 acre-feet have already been discharged to the valley. So I think that it's you can make arguments against why it's not, why we shouldn't waste our time doing it. Based on some assumptions and understandings and extrapolated, perceptions of what the lithology looks like. But the opportunity is not frequent, and I think in everybody's view that's trying to kind of optimize the benefit of this, we don't want to get to presume that some appearance, or presence of clays in the subsurface are going to prevent something from happening. We are exploring the idea of constructing, kind of deeper percolation ponds that would cut through formation that might be prohibiting or limiting kind of vertical percolation. But we're not sure what would happen. We're not sure, what can occur or what can benefit as a result of all this energy, except that there's potential we can do some really good conservation with trying to capture it. And so I think if in fact the sandbags are placed in the creek bed and the percolation doesn't occur and the water starts to go horizontally, it approaches private improvements or private property, then we lower the sandbag level and we enhance the overflow so that the horizontal creep is arrested. That's all part of watching and maintaining control of what's happening. And it can be readily done with just removing a couple of sandbags. We're not building a concrete dam here.
Board members? No?
It's essentially a fancy earthen dam. Earthen dams are properly engineered, can address all those issues. It's not a raging torrent. I wouldn't try throwing sandbags in a flood, but it wouldn't do any good. But it's not an engineering problem that's insurmountable.
And I would point out that the fast and rapid is not always the best approach. And as we saw with the county's efforts to establish those settle basements further up on Freeman Gulch, which basically washed away already, the sandbags won't be prone to that same kind of damage, but there are issues that we could design up front to mitigate, like we don't put the sandbags any higher than the sides of the wash.
And all of these issues add to the urgency of coming up with a more permanent solution.
Right.
That's
Yeah, that's the important.
It's a shame that it takes an event like this to force you to look farther ahead, which I know we did at the Water District years ago. And as long as we're building those partnerships here, it'd be very important to look at the long term. Whether, like Chuck says, it's more percolation ponds, or it's a water banking system, whatever it may be, now's the time.
Yes.
So, like I mentioned before, I have some sandbags, I'd like to donate them, if I can, if that's not a conflict. I have 500, and if anybody in town wants to donate sandbags, bring them to the district, and we'll take them.
Thank you for your offer.
We can put them in Don's office, right?
Mine
Is
are
that-
full. Mine
is
are
that reasonable?
Mine are ready to be used right now. They're on a pallet.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you.
Move on to item number 4, well 31 rehab.
Okay, Lane has finished their work at well 31, so, staff has been flushing the well and getting it ready to sample, and, obviously we can't use the well yet, but having it ready to go is the plan right now. They're also doing work, I believe, on installing the automated valves out there, so.
Good news. Questions, comments? Item 5, booster stations.
Okay, the only work that's going on right now, the boosters and the tanks, is the tank up above the college. The actual construction welding of the tank has been completed, and the coating crew has started this week. So there's some pictures there. The contractor was working on the inlet outlet piping last week. You can move on, there's just a couple pictures there. That, and then there's a few pictures of the actual tank itself, so. Green now, won't be green in the future. There's an interior one there, yeah. So there's still interior piping that will need to be put in. I'm sorry?
As Jim Kite calls you about the color of the tank, he's calling me, I can tell him to call you.
So the latest update from the contractor, unfortunately, for equipment for the booster station, pumps, motors, motor control center, is continued delays. They did provide letters from the manufacturers, the suppliers. We're expecting not to be receiving those items till July, and that pushes the completion date out to October now for the booster station.
Okay. Thank you for that. Comments, questions? Are you getting ready for a question, Pat? Oh, okay. We're getting ready to talk about financial status. Thank you. Okay, item number 6.
Okay, through April 2023, we have revenues of 12.6 million versus expenditures of 14.2 million, so we're upside down 1.6 million at this point, which is 527,000 worse than the budget. As you know, there's been less water consumption, it's been cooler, rain, yeah, so we're behind on that. And anticipate we'll make up most of that by the end of the year, but we're still looking at a little bit of a shortfall from the budget. Capital expenditures to date, almost $6 million. Of that, 2.5 million was funded with the last of the COP funding, and debt service principal of 926,000.
Thank you. Comments, questions? Solar production?
For phase 1 solar, we had actual April savings of 58,658 versus the guarantee of 49,984, so generating above the guarantee. And phase 2, which is the well 35 site, we have April production of 2,479, which is above the guarantee of 2,033.
Okay. Questions, comments? Conservation?
Conservation for a calendar year of 2023, we've received 39 water waste reports, 39 contacts made, 19 formal warnings issued, and 7 penalties issued.
Okay, thanks for that. Item 9, in your current road transition line?
Notice of exemption now approved will be filed. District engineering staff is currently working to assemble the bid documents to make the project shovel-ready. To help qualify to file for the DCIP, the Defense Community Infrastructure Pilot Program, which is due by June 23rd.
And that's a DCIP allocation that happens this,
That's the one that they said
This
will be
year?
awarded in August.
okay, that's a pretty quick turnaround. Yeah, I'm sorry, again, the application was due
June 23rd.
June 23rd. Thanks for the Navy's help on that.
He's gonna round up a whole bunch of people to go fill sandbags. I can see it in his eyes.
There you
Okay,
go.
cool. I got you there. Renee, the reason well 31 isn't available is because of this line, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
How's that gonna affect us come the summer months when our water?
Well, the plan is to use the arsenic treatment plants, right, Jason?
It's gonna,
We're gonna rely a lot more heavily on the arsenic plants. We're trying to work out something with well 17 to convert it into a B zone well.
okay.
So we're currently testing that theory, but we're gonna rely a lot more on the arsenic.
So you're working on it.
So in theory, we have capacity to make up for the loss of the 30-inch line, but it's,
It's gonna be a lot more babysitting this summer, but
okay.
a lot more chemicals.
Oh, yeah, fair enough. Is that plan going to be presented to the board at some point, or what's
Which plan?
the plan for, what are we going to do without the 30-inch line?
I can give you a basic rundown of it next.
Okay, yeah, not necessarily here, but maybe,
I remember from previous conversations, with the wells on this side of the break, we have sufficient capacity, but we don't have enough capacity that if one of those wells on this side of the break goes down, that might be problematic.
Then we would have to do something to encase that when there's something to make it function temporarily.
I guess that's where I'm trying to outthink this is, what is the plan B? Got to get plan A working, but well, that's why you have a plan B, because if you don't. All right, item 10, arsenic treatment.
Yeah, so plant 2 was running into the system as of April 6th, and it produced 40,358,000 gallons for the month. What, half? Yeah, that's close.
Okay,
Plant 1, Pure Flow completed the installation of the new underdrain system on April 28th. New support media is on schedule to be shipped to the district next week. After receipt and placement of the support media, the filter media can begin to be added back into the vessels. Once the media is set, staff can begin to disinfect the system and prepare for production.
just in time.
Yeah, just in time.
Okay, operations?
For the month of April, we had 9 repairs, 37 replacements. NODES ran 14 times, saving 102,840 gallons, bringing our grand total since inception to 8,849,265 gallons. And 99 valves were exercised, bringing our year-to-date total to 99 because the GIS system was not functioning on Windows 11, but it is now.
Okay, thank you for that. Item 10, board comments, future agenda items. Director Griffin?
I have none.
Zazinski?
Nothing?
Stan?
One item, our general manager has contacted both Shannon Grove and Vince Fong regarding the state revolving fund. I think he's done due diligence with regard to everything he can do. I think we've gotten, I believe, a very positive response from Vince Fong, but have not been able to get the attention of Shannon Grove. My feeling is the state revolving fund is critical to our future needs. And I guess I would like to suggest that we have our president attempt to call Shannon Grove's staff or Shannon Grove to attempt to get her attention. Typically, Vince and Shannon work together on most efforts, and they actually do a very good job, but my feeling is that Don's already been over backwards trying to get the ball rolling, and now maybe it's the time to get the board more directly involved in the name of our illustrious
I'd be happy to do
president.
that, but I'd like to have the background on what's already been sent to her that's not been responded to. Can you give me, was there a letter or?
Yeah, I've contacted both of them, both Assembly Member Fong and Senator Groves through their emails, personal emails. I did send a follow-up email to Senator Groves and have not heard back, but Assembly Member Fong did respond and had one of his staff members, Spencer Street, reach out to us, and Ty and I had a phone call with him. And actually, he was much more accommodating than I expected, and indicated he would follow up and keep track of what any progress.
Can you share that email with me?
Sure.
And then I'll know what's been already relayed and I can have that discussion. Okay. Director St. Amand.
I do have a comment. I would note that there are a number of news stories regarding the San Andreas Fault in Southern California. Geophysicists, geologists, and seismologists have been monitoring that. We're overdue for a major earthquake on that segment of the fault, which broke from somewhere just south of Palmdale, Lancaster, all the way up to the middle of the Central Valley. So we're 90 miles away. If it does break, you can expect intense shaking, not quite nearly as dramatic as the earthquake here in 2019, but it will last a lot longer. So don't give up on your earthquake preparedness. Still needed now. So the California Office of Emergency Services recommends that you have 30 days worth of food and water in your house. I strongly urge everyone who hears this to prepare for 30 days of food and water for themselves.
Always
Not just
good news.
And not just because of the risk of earthquake. Other things are going on, and all you have to do is turn on the news, and you need to be prepared. And there will be little sympathy for people that said, I just didn't know, and you're eating your last box of crackers. So please be prepared. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay. We are adjourned. Thanks for all your help, staff. Great job. Attendees, Navy, Chris for the Pledge of Allegiance.